We often think confidence is about how strong our voice sounds, how steady our eyes look, or how quick we respond when someone challenges us. But that's not confidence. That's performance. Real confidence is quiet. It's not something you show, it's something you stand in. Because confidence isn't about convincing anyone you're right. It's about being okay even if they don't believe you are. Let me tell you something that might surprise you. When you're truly confident, you don't speak to prove, you speak to serve. You don't speak from ego, you speak from peace. And peace is powerful because it doesn't beg to be understood. It just is. See, most people confuse attachment with passion. They think caring deeply means gripping tightly. But when you grip too tight, your words lose freedom. And when your words lose freedom, they lose truth. Emotional detachment, spiritual detachment, isn't about not feeling. It's about not fearing. It's knowing that your value doesn't fluctuate with other people's reactions. It's realizing that when you speak from alignment with truth, you don't have to chase validation. You become validation. There's a strength in being unmoved, not cold, but centered. That moment when someone disagrees with you and you don't shrink, you don't defend, you don't over-explain, you just stay still. That's not weakness, that's mastery. Because when your peace costs less than your point, you lose both. But when your peace means more than your pride, your words carry weight. They echo longer. They hit deeper. Confidence doesn't say, I need you to see my worth. It says, I know who I am, even if you don't. That's detachment, not from people, but from needing their permission to be you. And here's the secret: when you stop trying to control the response, your message gets clearer. When you stop performing, people start listening. You want to speak with confidence? Then stop needing your words to land perfectly. Stop needing everyone to nod in agreement. Just speak from truth and let the silence after you speak be the proof that it mattered. Confidence is not how loudly you say it. It's the peace you keep when you've said it. True confidence isn't about speaking louder. It's about speaking from a place of peace, not pressure. The world teaches us that the most confident person in the room is the one who dominates the conversation, who commands attention with their volume, their gestures, their certainty. But that's not confidence, that's noise. Real confidence doesn't need to shout because it isn't trying to prove anything. It's not performing, it's grounded. It's a quiet strength that speaks with clarity even when the words are few. When you speak from peace, your tone carries a different kind of energy, one that calms instead of competes, one that connects instead of conquers. Pressure makes us say things just to fill the silence, to avoid feeling small or unseen. But peace allows us to pause, to breathe, to let truth rise instead of forcing it out. You can feel it in a person's presence, the difference between someone who's talking to be heard and someone who's speaking from understanding. The first one needs attention. The second one already has it because truth has its own gravity. Speaking from peace means your identity is no longer tangled in the outcome. You're not trying to win an argument. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're simply expressing what's real. And when your words come from that place, they hit differently. They carry authority because they're not born out of insecurity. You're not fighting to be right. You're standing in what is right for you. Peace creates space between your emotion and your expression. It lets you choose wisdom over reaction, intention over impulse. The louder your soul's peace, the quieter your need to prove yourself. And that's what makes people lean in. They can feel that you're not performing. You're present. You're sure. True confidence isn't rehearsed, it's released. It doesn't come from preparing the perfect response. It comes from being okay, even if you don't have one. When your heart is steady, your words find their own rhythm. When you no longer speak to convince, but to contribute, people listen differently. Because peace has a frequency, and confidence is the sound it makes when it finally speaks. That's the kind of voice that moves rooms without ever raising itself. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you're no longer controlled by outcomes. Most people misunderstand detachment as apathy, as if to detach is to stop feeling, to stop loving, to stop showing up fully. But that's not what true detachment is. Detachment is freedom. It's the ability to give your best without the fear of what comes after. It's doing your part with all your heart and releasing the need to manipulate how it unfolds. When you are detached, you still care deeply. You just refuse to let results dictate your peace. Attachment makes us anxious. It ties our emotions to expectations, to how others respond, to whether life unfolds according to our plans. And every time it doesn't, we feel broken. But when you begin to live from a detached place, You discover that your joy no longer depends on control. You can be present in the moment without gripping it so tightly that it loses its life. Detachment is breathing in the now, knowing that what's meant for you will stay and what's not will drift away. No matter how hard you hold on, you can love someone and still let them choose. You can believe in a dream and still release the timeline. You can speak your truth and still accept silence in return. That's not indifference, that's power. Because you are no longer driven by fear of loss, you are moved by alignment. Detachment doesn't disconnect you from people or purpose, it connects you to peace. It allows you to act from wisdom instead of reaction. The most confident souls are detached because they know that outcomes don't define them. They understand that rejection doesn't reduce their value and acceptance doesn't increase it. They stand firm in the middle ground where peace lives, where effort and surrender coexist. That's the space where faith grows stronger than fear. When you master detachment, you no longer chase closure, validation, or recognition. You still show up with excellence, but you do it from overflow, not emptiness. You realize that your worth isn't in the reward, it's in the truth you carried while waiting for it. Detachment doesn't make you colder. It makes you clearer. It lets you move through life without being moved by life. That's real confidence, caring fully but not being consumed. When your self-worth isn't tied to how others receive your words, your voice becomes unshakable. Most people speak not to express truth, but to protect identity. They speak with one eye on their message and the other on the audience's reaction, wondering, did they like it? Did I say it right? Did I sound smart enough? That's not communication, that's fear disguised as expression. True confidence is when you can speak without holding your breath for approval. It's when your peace doesn't rise and fall with someone else's response. When your self-worth depends on reception, every disagreement feels like rejection. You begin to tailor your truth to fit the comfort of others. You shrink your voice to stay accepted. But the moment you detach your worth from how your words are received, everything changes. You stop performing and you start revealing. You stop defending your perspective and you start sharing it. You no longer fear being misunderstood because your value isn't found in being agreed with. It's found in being authentic. Some people won't hear you not because your message is unclear, but because they're not ready for it. And that's okay. You're not responsible for their readiness. You're responsible for your honesty. When your words come from a place of peace instead of pride, you no longer chase understanding, you invite it. You don't need every listener to clap. You just need your spirit to stay clear. That's what gives your voice strength. There's a sacred kind of power in being unmoved by response. It means your identity is anchored deeper than opinion. It means you've made peace with being misunderstood. The loudest freedom you'll ever experience is when you realize you have nothing to prove. Because when your self-worth is rooted in truth, your delivery becomes fearless. You can speak softly and still carry power. You can disagree and still be kind. You can stand alone and still feel whole. The voice that changes the room isn't always the loudest. It's the one that doesn't tremble when it's met with silence. When you speak from grounded worth, your words don't need applause to have meaning. You're no longer trying to be accepted. You're being authentic. And authenticity always echoes longer than approval. Silence before speaking is often the birthplace of divine authority. Most people rush to respond because silence feels uncomfortable. It feels like weakness, like surrender, like losing ground in a conversation. But silence is not absence, it's awareness. It's the sacred pause where clarity gathers its strength before stepping into the noise. When you allow silence to come first, your words are no longer reactions, they're revelations. You stop speaking to fill space and start speaking to create it. In the stillness, you separate emotion from intention. You begin to see what actually needs to be said and what was just ego trying to prove a point. Silence is where wisdom takes form. It filters out what's impulsive and amplifies what's true. People who speak too quickly often speak from fear. They're afraid of being unseen, unheard, or misunderstood. But when you're confident who you are, you can wait. You can hold that pause because you know your voice doesn't lose power in stillness. It gains it. There's a divine rhythm to confident communication. It starts in quiet reflection and ends in purposeful expression. Every moment of silence is a gathering of energy, a realignment with truth. When you speak from that still space, your words carry weight. They don't just reach ears, they reach souls. Because the power of a message isn't in how fast it's spoken, but in how deeply it's rooted in clarity. Silence is where humility meets strength. It's not about withholding your voice, it's about refining it. You can feel the difference when someone speaks after pausing to connect with their center. Their tone softens, their words simplify, and their presence commands respect without force. That's the kind of authority the world listens to, the one that doesn't demand attention but draws it naturally. When you learn to pause before you speak, you stop giving power to impulse and start walking in intention. You realize that silence isn't empty. It's full of discernment. It's where truth is tested before it's shared. Every great leader, every wise soul, every grounded spirit knows this. The most powerful words are born from the quietest moments. Because when you master silence, your words no longer come from need. They come from knowing. And knowing always speaks louder than noise. Confidence grows when you stop trying to convince and start communicating truth. Most people mistake persuasion for confidence. They believe that if they can make others agree, they've won. But that's not strength, that's striving. The constant need to convince others is really a sign of doubt hiding behind effort. When you're certain of your truth, you no longer have to push it. You present it with calm clarity and let it stand, because truth doesn't beg, it just is. It doesn't compete for space, it simply occupies it. The moment you stop trying to persuade, your energy changes, your voice softens, but your message sharpens. You stop arguing to be right and start speaking to be real. You realize that understanding can't be forced, it's received. And whether someone receives it or not doesn't define your confidence. It just reveals where they are in their journey. True confidence allows others to disagree without it shaking your foundation. You don't need to overpower them with words, because peace has already settled the argument within you. When you speak from conviction rather than competition, your communication transforms. You stop talking at people and start connecting with them. You're not trying to pull them towards your side. You're offering perspective and letting truth do the rest. There's a freedom in that, a release from the constant performance of trying to be right, because real confidence isn't found in how many people you convince. It's found in how deeply you align with what you believe. When you no longer chase agreement, you can finally speak with love. You can express hard truths without aggression and correction without arrogance. Confidence gives you the grace to say less, to pause more, to let silence do the heavy lifting. Because when your words are anchored in truth, they don't need embellishment. They carry their own authority. Convincing drains your energy. Communicating truth restores it. Convincing looks outward for validation. Truth looks inward for direction. One is fueled by fear of being dismissed, the other by peace and being understood by yourself first. The shift happens the moment you realize that your goal isn't to win minds. It's to reflect truth faithfully. That's where confidence lies, not in control, but in clarity. When you stop trying to convince, your presence begins to speak louder than your words ever could. Emotional detachment gives your words spiritual gravity because they come from clarity, not chaos. When you are emotionally tangled in a moment, your words lose their grounding. They become reactive, shaped by fear, anger, or the need to be understood. But when you detach emotionally, not by shutting down, but by stepping back, you begin to see things as they truly are. You respond, not react. You speak with precision, not pressure. Emotional detachment doesn't make you distant. It makes you deliberate. It means your emotions no longer drive your words. They inform them with wisdom instead of urgency. When you speak from chaos, your tone may sound strong, yet your message wavers. It carries tension rather than truth. But when you speak from clarity, there's a calm authority in your voice that people can feel. You don't need to prove or persuade, you simply present. And people trust that energy more than they trust force, because calmness is credibility. Stillness is power. Emotional detachment allows you to channel your truth with focus, without the noise of ego, expectation, or insecurity clouding your message. There's a sacred discipline in learning to pause when emotions rise. That pause isn't weakness, it's mastery. It's the moment where your spirit filters what your emotions are trying to say, and only truth passes through. The most powerful people are not those who feel less, but those who don't let their feelings lead them off course. Emotional detachment is not coldness, it's control. It's the strength to feel everything but choose to speak from balance, not from battle. When your emotions are untamed, your words become heavy with confusion. But when your emotions are acknowledged and released before you speak, your words become light, but full of depth. They carry the weight of awareness, not reaction. That's what gives them gravity, because they come from a clear heart and a quiet mind. Emotional detachment allows you to stand in any situation. Conflict, criticism, misunderstanding, and still remain composed. It gives you the grace to hold truth gently while the world demands you shout it. That steadiness draws people in. It's the kind of presence that silences a room, not with volume, but with peace. Because when your heart is calm, your words don't just communicate, they convict. And that is the true power of spiritual clarity. You don't need to dominate a room to lead it. You only need to be anchored in truth. Leadership is not about commanding attention. It's about embodying alignment. The loudest person in the room may have everyone's eyes, but the calmest person usually has everyone's respect. True influence doesn't come from volume or authority. It comes from presence. When you're anchored in truth, your energy leads before your words do. People feel safety in your stillness, assurance in your tone, and direction in your silence. That's real leadership, the kind that doesn't shout for control, but speaks with conviction that can't be shaken. Dominating a room comes from insecurity. It's an effort to compensate for doubt. But when you know who you are and what you stand for, you don't need to prove anything. You don't need to compete for space because truth naturally expands wherever it's spoken. The room adjusts to your energy, not because you forced it to, but because your peace creates gravity. People lean in, not because you demand it, but because you carry a calm certainty that draws them. That's the kind of authority that doesn't require permission. It's earned through consistency, clarity, and authenticity. Anchoring yourself in truth means you know when to speak and when to listen. You're not swayed by noise, nor do you rush to fill silence. You trust that truth doesn't need urgency. It only needs presence. The greatest leaders are not those who dominate. They're the ones who elevate. They make space for others. They guide without overshadowing. They inspire without demanding loyalty. Their confidence isn't loud, it's felt. To lead a room from truth, you must first lead yourself from peace. That's where strength begins, in the unseen alignment between your heart and your words. When you are rooted in that still place, no chaos can pull you off center. People sense that. They sense that you're not chasing power, you're channeling purpose. When truth anchors you, you can be gentle and still be firm. You can be quiet and still be heard. Because the world doesn't follow the loudest voice. It follows the most authentic one. And when that authenticity stands tall without striving, the whole room shifts, not because you took control, but because truth did. The calm soul speaks with more power than the loud ego. There's a difference between noise and presence, between trying to be heard and naturally commanding attention. The ego believes it needs to push, to persuade, to dominate the space in order to be respected. But the calm soul knows that true authority doesn't shout, it resonates. Power isn't in how loud your words are, it's in the peace that stands behind them. When you've made peace with yourself, you no longer need to prove yourself. That inner calm becomes your greatest strength, and it speaks louder than any argument ever could. Ego-driven speech is restless. It's full of urgency, constantly searching for validation. It interrupts, defends, and performs. But when your spirit is calm, your words slow down. They gain weight because they come from reflection, not reaction. You're no longer racing to be right. You're focused on being real. The calm soul isn't indifferent. It's discerning. It chooses its words with purpose. It knows that silence can sometimes communicate more than speech. There's wisdom in restraint and strength in peace. People can feel the difference when you speak from ego versus when you speak from calm. Ego demands attention. Calm attracts it. Ego says, listen to me. Calm says, feel this. And people always remember how they felt in your presence more than the words you spoke. The calm soul carries that quiet assurance that makes others feel safe enough to listen. It doesn't need to fight for credibility. It embodies it. When your heart is centered, your words carry the vibration of truth. You don't need fancy language or forceful delivery. The power is in your presence. A calm tone can disarm defensiveness, soothe tension, and create understanding in places where ego could never reach. That's what makes peace such a potent form of influence. It changes the energy of a room without needing to control it. The calm soul has learned that truth doesn't need a megaphone. It only needs alignment. Because when your spirit is still, even your silence carries authority. That's the paradox of true power. It's quiet. And when you've reached that level of peace, your voice no longer strives to impress. It exists to impact. The calm soul doesn't need to win the moment. It is the moment. Detachment is not distance. It's discernment between what's yours to carry and what's not. Most people think detachment means pulling away, shutting down, or caring less, but real detachment is none of those things. It's clarity. It's the sacred understanding that not everything that comes your way deserves your energy, your attention, or your emotional involvement. Detachment is learning to love fully without losing yourself, to be compassionate without becoming consumed, and to be available without being absorbed. It's knowing what belongs to you and what simply passes through you. When you lack discernment, everything feels personal. Every comment, every criticism, Every delay feels like a reflection of your worth. But when you develop detachment, you begin to see life differently. You understand that some battles aren't yours to fight, some emotions aren't yours to hold, and some outcomes aren't yours to fix. Detachment teaches you that peace doesn't come from controlling everything. It comes from knowing what's not your responsibility. It's not coldness, it's wisdom that guards your spirit from unnecessary chaos. Being detached means you can stand in a storm and not become it. You can witness anger without absorbing it, listen to pain without drowning in it, and respond to conflict without reacting to it. That's what spiritual maturity looks like, staying connected to others while remaining rooted in your own center. You can care deeply while staying balanced. You can love without attachment, give without depletion, and engage without losing your inner grounding. Discernment is the heart of detachment. It gives you the vision to see where your influence ends and where divine timing begins. When you trust that, you stop forcing outcomes and start flowing with purpose. You learn that letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means giving space for growth, for grace, for guidance. Detachment frees you from emotional clutter. It allows you to hold peace in one hand and compassion in the other. It's the quiet strength of knowing that you are responsible for your effort, not everyone's response. You show up, you give your best, and then you let go. That's where real power lies, not in control, but in clarity. Detachment isn't walking away from life. It's walking through life without being carried away by it. Real confidence is rooted in surrender, not control. Most people think confidence means taking charge, having all the answers, and being unshakable no matter what happens. But that's not confidence. That's exhaustion disguised as strength. True confidence doesn't come from trying to control everything around you. It comes from trusting that you can handle whatever comes your way. Surrender isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's the quiet recognition that control is an illusion, and peace only begins when you release your grip. When you're constantly trying to control outcomes, people, or perceptions, your confidence becomes fragile. It depends on how well life cooperates with your plan. But when you surrender, your confidence deepens. It's no longer based on circumstance. It's rooted in alignment. You stop needing everything to go right to feel secure. You begin to trust yourself to stay grounded even when it doesn't. That's the kind of confidence that lasts. Surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means giving over. It's the shift from, I must make this happen, to, I'll do my part and let the rest unfold. It's the strength to show up fully while accepting that you can't control the outcome. When you operate from surrender, you move with grace instead of grasping. You make decisions from clarity, not fear. And people feel that in your presence. There's something magnetic about someone who isn't desperate for control. They radiate peace. They trust timing, trust truth, trust the process. Real confidence comes from knowing that even if everything changes, you won't lose yourself in the chaos. You can bend without breaking because your strength isn't tied to the illusion of certainty. It's tied to faith. Surrender transforms confidence from an external performance into an internal state of being. It's the difference between trying to manage the storm and learning to stand still in the rain. When you finally surrender control, you don't shrink, you expand. You make space for divine timing to move, for creativity to flow, for clarity to rise. You stop chasing outcomes and start cultivating peace. Because confidence isn't about predicting what's next. It's about trusting that whatever comes next, you'll still be okay. That's the power of surrender. It frees you to live, lead, and speak with unshakable grace. Confidence is not the fire that burns to prove. It's the light that shines because it knows. It's not loud, not forceful, not frantic. It's still. It's rooted. It's a calm conviction that no matter what shifts around you, the truth within you stands firm. Real confidence is born when you stop chasing control, approval, and recognition and start anchoring yourself in peace, purpose, and surrender. When you learn to detach, to pause, to release the need to be understood, something miraculous happens. You stop performing life and start living it. You stop defending your worth and start embodying it. That's the kind of confidence the world can't imitate because it doesn't come from applause. It comes from awareness. Every time you speak from peace instead of pride, you reclaim your power. Every time you choose stillness over reaction, you teach the world that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. And that whisper, when it comes from truth, moves mountains. So don't chase being impressive. Chase being aligned. Don't fight to be heard. Stand to be understood. Let your confidence be the quiet fire that doesn't need attention to keep burning. Because the moment you stop trying to control how your light is received, it begins to shine exactly as it was meant to.